Okay, the next is about the dynamic RAMs. So, and the static RAMs are fast, but they come at high cost. Okay, so because they require several transistors, so that's the reason why they are expensive. Okay, so we will try to implement RAM with less expensive devices. So some such devices are the capacitors. Okay, so less expensive RAM can be implemented in simpler cell. So, and they do not retain their state independently. Okay, so if that is the type of RAM, it is called as dynamic RAM, or in short we call them as DRAM. The information stored in DRAM cell is in the form of charge, okay, on the capacitor, and this charge can be maintained only for few milliseconds. Since the cell is required to store the information for much longer time, its content must be periodically refreshed by the power supply, that is continuously supplying the power. We have to maintain the power which is stored in the capacitor. Okay, so here is an example of a single dynamic cell. So in this single dynamic cell, we are having a capacitor C and a transistor T. So here we are having a capacitor C and a transistor T. So in order to store the information into the cell, transistor T should turn on. So in order to store something to the cell, okay, so in order to store something to the cell, so this transistor should be turned on, and an appropriate voltage should be applied to the bit line. So to this bit line, if we pass some voltage, then that voltage, through that voltage, when this transistor is on, that charge is passed to the capacitor. So the charge is stored in a capacitor. So and this capacitor is going to tell whether this cell is in one state or zero state. Okay, so in order to tell whether it is in zero state or one state, some threshold voltage. So this threshold voltage we can also call as cutoff voltage. So some threshold voltage is maintained. Okay, so this threshold voltage is maintained, and if this capacitor charge, if it is greater than the threshold voltage which is maintained, then we are going to say that this cell is in one state. So whereas if this capacitor is going to maintain the value which is less than the threshold, then we are going to say that this capacitor is in zero state. So that is how the values are stored in the DRAM cells. Then that is about the explanation of DRAM.